Welcome to the CACFP Child Care Center Infant Staff Training provided by the Iowa Department of Education, Bureau of Nutrition and Health Services. This training is designed to provide an overview of the Child and Adult Care Food Program for infant room staff with CACFP duties. This webinar will cover topics you need to know as a staff member responsible for infant feeding and record keeping. You will learn about CACFP infant meal pattern requirements, creditable infant foods, record-keeping procedures, other CACFP requirements, and best practices. Below is a summary of the requirements. Offer the food program to families of infants. Enroll all infants in care of the center. Follow CACFP infant meal pattern requirements. Serve creditable foods. Keep individual daily dated menus for each infant. Record meal participation at or near the time each infant is served. And keep accurate infant attendance records. Each requirement will be discussed in this lesson. Let's discuss the first requirement, that the food program must be offered to infants. This means parents must not be required to bring any infant food or formula. Offering the program also means the center must offer to provide at least one creditable formula to families of infants when they enroll. The center must list the formula it will offer on the enrollment form. The parent should accept or decline the center formula in writing. The decision about what formula to offer can be based on the formulas parents are using, cost, and storage considerations. A chart showing how to compare the cost of different formulas is shown here. As long as the formula is creditable, it can be selected by the center to offer. Creditable formulas will be discussed later in the presentation. The second requirement is that all infants must be enrolled for care at the center. CACFP enrollment information that includes the usual days and hours of care and the meals the infant will normally receive must be collected. CACFP enrollment forms must list the formula you will offer in writing before they are distributed to parents. CACFP enrollments are to be filled out and signed by the parent or guardian and updated annually. There are places on the form for the parent to indicate the components they will provide or accept from the center. Parents may provide meal components or extra foods for their own infant if they wish, and if center policies allow food to be brought from home. The food provided by parents must be creditable if it will be used to fulfill a component required by the meal pattern. No more than one required meal component may be provided by the parent if the meal will be claimed for reimbursement. On infant menus, mark meal components provided by the parent with an X. Parents may donate food for other infants. A record of donated infant foods must be kept. The exception is that foods obtained from the WIC program can only be provided by a family for their own infant and may not be donated for use by other children. The third requirement is that the infant meal pattern must be followed based on the age of the infant unless a statement from a medical provider authorized to write prescriptions in the state of Iowa is on file. The infant meal pattern will be discussed later in the presentation. The fourth requirement is to serve creditable infant foods. Creditable foods count towards fulfilling required meal components. Non-creditable or other foods do not fulfill the food requirements listed in the meal pattern. When non-creditable foods are used to fulfill component requirements, the meal must not be claimed for reimbursement. Creditable foods will be discussed later in the presentation. The fifth requirement is to keep an individual daily dated menu for each infant. This is a requirement even if the center will not claim infant meals, since menu records are required by the Iowa Department of Human Services, or DHS. 2 different weekly menu forms are available, one for all infants 0 through 11 months old, and the other for infants 6 through 11 months old. A monthly infant menu form for infants 0 through 5 months may also be used. Ask your supervisor what form to use at your center. Menu records must document each food served and be kept on file at the center. Sponsored sites should send final copies of infant menus to the sponsor office at the end of the month. Last are some final record-keeping requirements. Infant meal participation should be recorded at or near the time of meal service. Accurate daily infant attendance records must be kept, and income applications must be on file for any infants claimed at the free or reduced price rate of reimbursement. Note that you are not required to claim infant meals for reimbursement, but it is financially beneficial to do so since DHS already requires most of the records needed to claim meals. Next, we will cover the infant meal pattern. The first year of life is divided into 2 6-month age groups with meal pattern guidelines for each. Breast milk and/or iron-fortified infant formula must be served for the entire first year. Infants must be held when they are fed and should never be left with a propped-up bottle, since infants need human interaction, and this helps to prevent tooth decay. Solid foods should be introduced around 6 months when the infant is developmentally ready. Solid foods should be introduced one at a time by parents. Parents should regularly be asked to communicate with infant room staff about foods tried at home, preferably in writing. The infant foods tried at home form, available in the manual and in download forms, is recommended for this use. Serving sizes are listed as a range to allow flexibility based on each infant's appetite. Care providers must offer at least the minimum serving size listed on the CACFP infant meal pattern chart. If 0 is listed as the minimum serving, this means the food is not required until the infant is developmentally ready. After a required solid food component is regularly served at home, it must be included in meals at the child care setting, consistent with the infant's usual eating pattern. Infants vary from day to day in the amounts they actually eat. For breastfed infants who regularly consume less than the minimum required amount of breast milk per feeding, a serving of less than the minimum amount may be served, with additional breast milk offered at a later time if the infant is hungry. Let infants determine how much they will eat. Some infants may want less and should never be forced to finish what is in the bottle or what is spoon-fed. Larger portions may be served to infants who want more. Become familiar with individual cues each infant uses to show hunger or fullness. To learn more about infant hunger and satiety cues, refer to Feeding Infants in the Child and Adult Care Food Program, or take the online course by Nemours, Responsive Feeding Techniques for Infant-Toddler Providers in Early Care and Education Settings. The link is in the manual. Infants do not eat on a strict schedule. Although the meal pattern specifies breakfast, lunch, supper, and snack, this may not match each baby's eating habits. Instead, infants should be fed during a span of time consistent with their individual eating habits. All meal components do not have to be served at one time and may be fed to the infant over the course of the day. Food served throughout the day can be grouped together to meet requirements for a specific meal. Let's go over the meal patterns for each age group. The first group is infants birth through 5 months. Note that 4 to 6 ounces of breast milk or formula is listed for each meal and snack. This is all that most young infants can consume given their small stomach capacity and immature digestive tracts. Notice the footnotes by the meal components. Footnote 1 indicates that breast milk or formula or portions of both may be served. Refer to parents' wishes regarding what to serve. You are encouraged to support mothers who wish to breastfeed, since it is recommended that breast milk be served in place of formula. The second footnote indicates that infant formula served must be iron fortified. The next age range is 6 through 11 months. 6 to 8 ounces of breast milk or formula is listed for each meal, and 2 to 4 ounces is listed at snack. Additional foods may be served based on the infant's developmental readiness. Footnote 4 states a serving of this component is required only when the infant is developmentally ready to accept it. After the infant is developmentally ready, the parent has introduced the foods and given instructions to serve it at a specific meal. The center should serve the food as well. The serving sizes for each meal component are the same at breakfast, lunch, and supper. Required foods include 0 to 4 tablespoons of iron-fortified infant cereal, meat, fish, poultry, whole eggs, cooked dry beans or split peas, or 0 to 2 ounces of natural cheese, or 0 to 4 ounces of cottage cheese, or 0 to 4 ounces of yogurt, or a combination of these foods, and 0 to 2 tablespoons of vegetable, fruit, or both. At snack time, the minimum required amount of breast milk or formula is 2 to 4 ounces. Some form of whole grain rich or enriched bread, crackers, infant cereal, or ready-to-eat cereal may be served when the infant is developmentally ready. The serving sizes are 0 to 1/2 slice of bread, 0 to 2 crackers, or 0 to 4 tablespoons of infant cereal or ready-to-eat cereal. 0 to 2 tablespoons of vegetable or fruit, or a combination of both, must also be served at snack when the infant is developmentally ready and the parent indicates. Footnote 3 shows that yogurt is reimbursable, but must contain no more than 23 grams of sugar per 6 ounces. And footnote 7 states breakfast cereals must contain no more than 6 grams of sugar per dry ounce. If the infant is unable to follow the meal pattern, the center must have a statement from a medical provider who is authorized to write prescriptions in the state on file. The statement is required to claim meals that do not meet meal pattern requirements. The meal should comply with the substitutions stated by the medical provider. While a specific form is not required, it is recommended to use the diet modification request form when parents request meal substitutions outside the meal pattern. Ask your supervisor for a copy of the form if needed. Next, we will discuss creditable foods for infants. The CACFP provides a list of creditable foods for infants. Ask your supervisor for a copy. Be sure to read the entire list and follow it when purchasing and serving food to infants. Let's start with some definitions. Creditable foods are meal components that count toward meeting the infant meal pattern and fulfilling the requirements for a reimbursable infant meal. Non-creditable foods, or other foods, do not count toward the infant food requirements listed in the meal pattern. When non-creditable foods are served in place of creditable components, the meal cannot be claimed for reimbursement. You must carefully read food labels before purchasing infant foods to determine if they are creditable. The first food on the creditable foods list is breast milk. It is listed first because it is the preferred food for infants. You can support breastfeeding mothers by encouraging them to supply breast milk when their infants are in childcare, and by providing a quiet, private, comfortable, and sanitary area for mothers to breastfeed in the childcare setting. USDA provides a free resource entitled Breastfed Babies Welcome Here. It includes a poster and window cling with signage to let parents know the center encourages and accommodates breastfeeding. The center can also share the mother's guide that is part of the kit, as well as additional parent information from the USDA handbook, Feeding Infants in the Child and Adult Care Food Program. Links to both resources are included in the manual. Providers can be reimbursed for meals when mothers breastfeed at the center and when expressed breast milk is served as part of a creditable meal. Infant meals, including breast milk, are reimbursable only when a mother comes to the center to breastfeed her infant, a center employee breastfeeds her infant at the center, or center staff feed expressed milk provided by the mother. Additional guidance on how to correctly claim infant meals that include breast milk will be covered in this lesson. Breast milk can be served in place of fluid cow's milk to children after 12 months of age, as long as desired by the mother and child. The next creditable food listed is iron-fortified infant formula. The U.S. Food and Drug Administration defines iron-fortified infant formula as any iron-fortified infant formula intended for dietary use as a sole source of foods for normal, healthy infants served in liquid state at manufacturer's recommended dilution. Most formulas that say iron-fortified or with iron will meet the FDA definition. Meals that include only iron-fortified infant formula that is supplied by the parent or center are reimbursable until the infant is ready for solids. Once a child is ready for solids, the parents may provide only one required meal component. The one component may be breast milk, formula, or solid food. The center must provide the rest of the components in order to claim the meal. There are 3 types of infant formula available for purchase: ready to feed, liquid concentrate, and powdered. Ready to feed can be poured directly from the container into the bottle and fed. It is the most expensive form of formula and may be prescribed for parents who have an unsafe water supply or who have limited abilities or facilities for mixing formula. Liquid concentrate is mixed 1 part water to 1 part formula. It is also expensive and not commonly used. Powdered formula is the most commonly purchased formula. It is mixed using 1 level scoop of formula to 2 ounces of water. The water must be poured into the bottle first, and then the formula is added. Infants' digestive systems and kidneys are sensitive, so it is important to mix formula correctly to achieve the proper dilution and so that infants receive proper nutrition. All formulas must be creditable, even if supplied by the parent. Non-creditable formulas may be claimed only when the center obtains a statement from a medical authority and serves the formula as prescribed. Criteria to identify if a formula is creditable are listed in the manual and will be discussed. First, make sure the formula is not on the FDA exempt formula list. You can find a complete list of exempt formulas on the FDA website. The link is listed for you in the manual. We will talk more about exempt formulas later in the presentation. Next, examine the nutrition label to see if the formula is iron fortified. Look for infant formula with iron or a similar statement. All iron fortified infant formulas must have this type of statement on the package. Last, check the label to make sure the formula is manufactured in the United States. If these 3 criteria are met, the formula is creditable. This page provides more information on exempt formulas. An exempt infant formula is intended and labeled for use by infants who have inborn errors of metabolism, low birth weight, or otherwise unusual medical or dietary problems. Formulas classified as exempt by FDA require a medical statement in order to be claimed in a reimbursable meal. The manual gives a partial listing of exempt infant formulas. Refer to the FDA website for the complete list. This page lists non-creditable milk products for infants. The list includes anything but human milk, iron-fortified infant formula, and yogurt. Yogurt can be served as a meat alternate for older infants. Some of the items on the list of non-creditable milk products include breast milk or iron-fortified infant formula in a bottle with infant cereal, buttermilk, any type of cow's milk, cream, cream soups, dairy and non-dairy creamers, custard, evaporated cow's milk, exempt, follow-up, homemade, low iron and weaning infant formulas, goat's milk, half and half, ice cream, milk substitutes such as almond, coconut, hemp, rice, and soy milk or beverage, pudding, reconstituted dry milk, and sweetened condensed milk. Any form of raw unpasteurized milk is also not creditable and prohibited because it poses a health risk to infants. Next, we will cover creditable and non-creditable infant vegetables and fruits for infants. Serving vegetables and fruits to infants provides an opportunity to expose children to a variety of tastes, textures, and flavors to foster a lifelong preference for these nutrient-dense foods that can positively impact health throughout a lifetime. Vegetables and fruits are a component at breakfast, lunch, supper, and snack starting at 6 months. Start feeding vegetables and fruits when the parent indicates the baby is ready, usually around 6 months of age. Serve no new foods only after the food has been introduced at home without any problems. Vegetables and fruits must be of appropriate consistency and texture for the individual infant. Creditable vegetables and fruits can be store-bought, purchased, or home prepared. Remove pits, seeds, tough skins, and peels. Cook if needed and prepare to the appropriate texture before serving. Single vegetables and fruits may be served, or they may be combined when the infant has been introduced to each food individually. The way a food is packaged does not impact whether it is creditable. Commercially prepared infant foods packaged in a jar, plastic container, or pouch are all acceptable. However, food packaged in a pouch must be served with a spoon. Infants benefit developmentally from the experience of eating from a spoon, and prolonged sucking from pouches may contribute to tooth decay. Most vegetables and fruits are creditable and are not listed individually on the chart. Creditable store-bought baby foods include single-component plain fruits and vegetables, mixed fruits and vegetables, and those containing DHA, which are healthy fats. Mixed component foods, such as fruit and/or vegetables, combined with grains and meat or meat alternates, are creditable, but not recommended unless quantities of each component are known. Look for labels stating amounts of each component in the product. Before feeding the mixture, check with the parent to see if the infant has been introduced to each item on the ingredient list. Canned or dried and cooked beans, split peas, and edamame soybeans are creditable as a vegetable or meat alternate, but cannot count as both components in the same meal. If commercially canned, rinse beans before serving. Do not serve whole to prevent choking. Creditable fruits and vegetables may be commercially canned, fresh, or frozen. Homegrown beets, turnips, carrots, and collard greens should not be fed to infants less than 6 months of age. The list of non-creditable fruits and vegetables includes baby fruit desserts, canned vegetable soups, deep fat fried vegetables, dried fruits and vegetables, lemonade, soda pop, sugar water, and sports drinks, freeze-dried fruit and vegetable snacks, fruit and yogurt combination drinks, fruit drinks made from flavored powders, all fruit and vegetable juices, punch and juice blends, fruit snacks, and fruit syrup. Dry iron-fortified infant cereals with fruit or vegetable wheels or puffs, and jarred iron-fortified infant cereals with fruit are not recommended unless quantities of vegetables, fruits, grains, or meat alternates are known. If served, look for products with labels stating the amounts of each component in the product. Home canned fruits or vegetables are prohibited since they pose a danger to infants. Next, we will discuss infant meat and meat alternates. According to the American Academy of Pediatrics, it does not matter which solid foods are introduced first to most infants, and there are also no advantages of introducing food in a certain order. However, due to their iron and zinc content, pureed meats are considered good first foods for babies. With the exception of cheese and yogurt, meat alternates are a good source of iron. Meat and meat alternates are an infant meal component at breakfast, lunch, and supper, starting at 6 months. Meat and meat alternates, infant cereal, or a combination of both must be served at these meals when the infant is developmentally ready. Meat alternates must be of appropriate consistency and texture for the individual infant's developmental abilities to prevent choking. Creditable meat and meat alternates include the following: natural and processed cheese such as American, cheddar, Colby, Kojak, Monterey Jack, mozzarella, and cottage cheese, fresh, pasteurized liquid or dried whole eggs, and fish and shellfish. Fish contains healthy fats such as DHA, but do not serve fish to a baby until the parents have introduced that type of fish to the baby first with no problems. All legumes are creditable, such as cooked dry or canned beans or split peas, lentils, black beans, pinto beans, black-eyed peas, chickpeas, and edamame soybeans. Rinse canned beans before serving to reduce the sodium content. Dried legumes must be cooked and prepared to the appropriate texture. Beans should not be served whole, and the shape should be altered to prevent choking. Legumes may be credited as a vegetable or as a meat alternate, but not as both in the same meal. Meats, including beef, pork, and lamb, and poultry, such as chicken and turkey, are also creditable. Breaded meat, fish, and chicken products are allowed, but not recommended unless the quantity of meat or meat alternate is known. Look for labels stating amounts of meat and grain in the product. Make sure the infant has been introduced to all ingredients before serving combination foods. Hot dogs and jarred meat and/or poultry sticks labeled for infants are also creditable if their shape is altered to prevent choking, and they contain no byproducts, cereals, and extenders. Fresh Italian, pork, and Vienna sausage are also creditable for infants. Single component, store-bought commercial baby food meats, with or without broth or gravy, are creditable as well. Commercial baby food meats that are pureed or minced may be served to infants that are developmentally ready to accept them. Yogurt is creditable and may be flavored or plain, Greek or regular, and any fat level. Total sugar must be limited to 23 grams per 6 ounces. Refer to the nutrition facts label. Use the CACFP Shopper free phone app or the Team Nutrition Training Worksheet. Choose yogurts that are lower in added sugars to determine if the yogurt meets the sugar criteria. Creditable yogurt packaged in tubes must be served with a spoon. The serving sizes for various meats and meat alternates is different depending on the item, so check the meal pattern for required portion sizes. All meat, eggs, poultry, and fish must be well cooked. Poultry and fish should be without skin and examined to make sure there are no bones. Eggs must be federally inspected. Fish must be purchased from a commercial source. All meats must be USDA inspected and can be purchased canned, fresh, or frozen. All meat and meat alternates must be of appropriate consistency and texture for the individual infant. As the baby's feeding skills develop, meat and poultry can be served in different textures, including ground or finely chopped. If creditable, the same meat or meat alternate served to older children can be served to infants if the texture is modified for the developmental skills of the infant. If not, a different meat or meat alternate must be planned for infant meals. Non-creditable meat and meat alternates include bacon, cheese food, cheese substitutes, cheese spreads, cheese powder, cheese product, imitation cheese, cream cheese, deep fat fried foods, dried meat and poultry sticks, fish canned with bones, shark, swordfish, king mackerel, tilefish, big eye tuna, orange roughy, and marlin. The specific species of fish listed are prohibited because they contain high levels of harmful mercury. Home canned meats are not creditable and prohibited due to food safety concerns. Green peas, green lima beans, and green beans are not creditable as a meat alternate, but do credit as a vegetable. Nuts and seeds are not creditable and should not be served to infants because they are a choking hazard. Nut and seed butters, including peanut butter, tahini, and sunflower seed butter, are not creditable, but they may be an ingredient in foods served if indicated by the parent. Current research indicates there is no need to avoid peanut butter to prevent food allergies. Other non-creditable meat alternates include tofu, homemade and soy yogurt, and yogurt products such as frozen and liquid yogurt, yogurt flavored products, bars, freeze-dried yogurt snacks, and yogurt covered fruits and nuts. Next, we will cover grain foods for infants. Iron-fortified infant cereal may be served at breakfast, lunch, and supper, starting around 6 months when the parent indicates the infant is developmentally ready. Infant cereal is the only grain food that fulfills an infant meal component requirement at breakfast, lunch, and supper. Infant cereal includes only dry cereal. Iron fortified should appear on the package, and any of the following should appear in the ingredient list: iron, ferric fumarate, electrolytic iron, or iron electrolytic. Because it is a good source of iron, infant cereal can be served instead of a meat alternate at breakfast, lunch, and supper. It can also be served at snack as a grain component. Single grain, iron-fortified infant cereals, such as barley, oatmeal, rice, or wheat, should be introduced before mixed infant cereals to check for any allergic reactions. IFC multiple grain products are creditable if the infant has been introduced to the individual grains in the ingredient list. Infant cereal may be prepared with express breast milk, infant formula, water, and/or pureed fruit or vegetables to produce a smooth cereal that is not too thick and is easy for a baby to swallow. As the baby gets older, the texture of the cereal can be adjusted to match their developmental skills. The texture can range from thin to lumpy, depending on the amount of liquid added. The amount of cereal listed on the meal pattern for infants 6 through 11 months ranges from 0 to 4 tablespoons of dry cereal. Measure the dry cereal first to ensure the required portion is provided, and follow any directions on the package. Add liquid to moisten to the desired consistency. Do not put cereal or other food in a bottle. Putting cereal in a bottle can be a choking hazard and cause the baby to gain weight too quickly. If a baby needs cereal in their bottle for a medical reason, a signed statement by a medical professional authorized to write prescriptions in the state must be on file. Additional grain foods may be served at snack. The following are creditable infant grain-based foods at snack only: animal crackers, bagels, breads, ready-to-eat breakfast cereals, biscuits, buns, cornbread and corn muffins, croissants, English muffins, graham crackers, pancakes, pita bread, pizza crust, soft pretzels, puff cereal snacks, rolls, savory crackers, soft tortillas, teething crackers, biscuits and toast, and waffles. Be sure to select grain, bread, cracker, and cereal products of appropriate shape and texture for an infant's eating abilities. Some items, such as bagels, ready-to-eat cereals, and hard crackers, may be a choking hazard. These foods must be broken into small, manageable pieces. Creditable grain foods with a footnote of 2 may be high in sodium, sugar, or fat and should be limited. Ready-to-eat cereals must contain no more than 6 grams of sugar per dry ounce. Refer to the nutrition facts label, CACFP shopper phone app, or the Team Nutrition worksheet. Choose breakfast cereals that are lower in added sugars to determine if the cereal meets the sugar criteria. Cereals on the WIC list of approved cereals are creditable. Puff cereal snacks may resemble puffed rice cereal or whole grain oats and be credited only if they are recognizable as a ready-to-eat cereal. They should easily dissolve in an infant's mouth. All bread, cracker, and ready-to-eat cereal products must be made with enriched or whole grain meal or flour. They must also be made without nuts, seeds, or hard pieces of whole grain kernels or other hard food items, dried fruits, and honey. Ready-to-eat cereals must be fortified if not made with enriched or whole grain meal or flour. The CACFP whole grain rich requirement does not apply to infants. Non-creditable grain-based foods for infants includes baby desserts, breakfast bars, brownies, cakes that are commercial or homemade, cereal bars, cooked rice, barley, bulgur, wheat, and other cooked grains, cookies, croutons, desserts, donuts, farina, fruit or vegetable wheels or puffs, grain bars, grain-based desserts, granola bars, grits, all types, iron-fortified infant cereal with dry fruit or formula. Note that plain iron-fortified infant cereals mixed with infant fruit after the cereal has been measured are creditable. Iron-fortified infant cereals with or without fruit in a jar that is wet, muffins other than corn, oatmeal, regular, minute, and old-fashioned, pasta, noodles, macaroni, spaghetti, and other shapes, popcorn, hard pretzels, sweet pastries and rolls, sweet pie crusts, tapioca, and toaster pastries. Some of the non-creditable foods may be an appropriate texture for older infants, such as cooked rice or other grains, grain-based wheels or puffs, farina, grits, muffins, oatmeal, and pasta, such as noodles, macaroni, spaghetti, and other shapes. They may be served as extras if developmentally appropriate and approved by the parent, but do not credit as a required meal component. Certain non-creditable foods, such as items made with honey, popcorn, and hard pretzels, should not be served since they may be a choking hazard or pose a health risk to infants. Other non-creditable foods are listed in the manual. These include artificial sweeteners, caffeinated drinks, candy of any kind, chips of any kind, chocolate, cocoa, coffee, deep fat fried foods prepared on site, foods that are small, sticky, or hard, marshmallows, soft drinks, energy drinks, or sports drinks, sugar, syrup, and sweeteners added to foods, sugar substitutes such as aspartame, sucralose, stevia, and saccharin, and tea, both sweetened and unsweetened. Home canned baby foods and honey as an ingredient or served alone are prohibited as they pose a health risk to the infant. Be sure to read ingredient lists and nutrition labels to avoid infant foods with added salt, fat, sugar, and other extra ingredients that contribute little nutritive value. Next, we will discuss how to correctly claim infant meals. If a parent supplies breast milk or a creditable formula for their infant ages 0 through 5 months, the meal may be claimed for reimbursement regardless of who provided the formula. Meals can also be claimed if the mother breastfeeds at the center. The mother may be a center employee as long as she breastfeeds on site. When infants start solid foods, usually around 6 months, the center must serve the other foods required by the meal pattern. The family may provide no more than one meal component in order to claim the meal for reimbursement. The component may be breast milk, formula, or a solid food. The component provided by the parent must be creditable to count towards meeting the meal pattern requirements. For infants receiving breast milk or formula only, claim the first feeding the infant receives at the center as a meal. If the first feeding is before noon, count it as a breakfast. If the first feeding is at noon or after, count it as lunch. A staff member or supervisor must be assigned to check infant records and ensure only creditable meals are included in the claim for reimbursement. We will discuss what must be evaluated before the meals can be included in the claim. First, the menu must include the infant's age in months to identify which meal pattern must be followed for 0 to 5-month-olds or 6 to 11-month-olds. Items provided by parents should be marked with an X. This makes it possible for the person reviewing the menus to ensure the center provided all but one meal component for infants ready for solid foods. If the parent provides more than one component, the meal should be zeroed out and not included in the claim for reimbursement. Next, meal participation records must be checked against menus. Meals must not be claimed if the menu for that meal is missing. Menus must also be checked to ensure meal pattern requirements have been met based on infant's age and readiness for solids. The meal pattern for infants 6 through 11 months old includes components in addition to breast milk or formula. Each component only needs to be served after the parent indicates their infant is ready for it at the meal consistent with their usual eating patterns. For example, an infant may eat fruit one week and not the next, or they may be served a fruit or vegetable at breakfast only. Meals should not be disallowed if a food is offered one day and not the next, or is not served at every meal, if this is consistent with the infant's eating pattern. If an infant is consistently eating a meal component at meals and snacks, you must offer it at each meal and snack. Creditable foods must be used to fulfill infant meal pattern requirements. If the parent wants non-creditable foods to be served, these foods may be served if they do not pose a risk to the infant, but do not count toward meeting meal pattern requirements. These foods should not displace required components. Meals that are missing required components or include non-creditable foods in place of required components may not be claimed for reimbursement. Non-reimbursable meals should be zeroed out and excluded from the claim for reimbursement. If an infant is unable to follow the meal pattern, a statement from a prescribing medical provider must be on file and followed in order for their meal to be claimed. Next, we will cover other requirements and recommended best practices for feeding infants. First, practices described in the USDA handbook, Feeding Infants in the Child and Adult Care Food Program, must be followed. Separate training on this handbook is also provided in Part 2 of Module 15. Next, food safety standards required by child care licensing and described in the USDA Infant Handbook must be followed. Also, all staff members who purchase, prepare, serve, and record infant meals must be trained prior to assuming CACFP duties. Watching this video will fulfill the training requirement for most infant staff. This training must be documented. Infant caregivers must be supervised on an ongoing basis to ensure they are completing their duties correctly. The frequency and level of supervision must be adequate to ensure infants are being fed consistent with CACFP requirements and that all CACFP records are on file and completed correctly. Parents should be the first to introduce new foods to infants at home. This practice decreases the chance that infants have a negative reaction to a new food at the center. Providers should not feed a new food until the parent indicates the infant is developmentally ready. The decision about the type of formula to feed should be made by the parent in consultation with the infant's healthcare provider and not by the center. Breast milk may be fed after infants turn 1 year of age in place of cow's milk, as long as the mother and child wish. A statement from a medical provider is not required. Last, toddlers may be fed a combination of formula and whole cow's milk during the month after the child turns 1 year old as a transition period. Next are recommended best practices to follow when feeding infants in the CACFP. The first is to support mothers who choose to breastfeed their infants by encouraging mothers to supply breast milk. To do this, you can include a policy to support breastfeeding mothers in the parent handbook and put up the Breastfed Babies Welcome Here poster and/or decal in the infant area. A mother's guide is also available. Breastfed Babies Welcome Here resources can be ordered free from Team Nutrition using the link in the manual. To further support breastfeeding mothers, offer a quiet, private area that is comfortable and sanitary for mothers who come to the center to breastfeed. Second, obtain written communication from parents about foods introduced at home. A form to use called Infant Food Tried at Home is available in the manual and download forms. This concludes the training on CACFP infant feeding requirements. By participating, you have received an overview of CACFP infant meal pattern requirements, creditable infant foods, record-keeping procedures, communicating with parents, how to support breastfeeding mothers, and additional requirements and best practices. If you have further questions, please contact the staff responsible for CACFP oversight at your center, the state agency, or your area consultant. Contact information is available in the CACFP Administrative Manual.